So we all see these things that she's gone through. I want you to start thinking about your own issues, problems, or whatever you call them, okay? And see, do I really have a problem? Or maybe I just need to shift my perspective. Maybe I need to go back in time and pull that weed that's still holding me back in terms of limitation, the beliefs, the constraint that I'm still holding. So I'm just inviting you to look at everything through a little different lens. So Barbara. Hi. I know you have a story to tell. Before you do, I have one question. A lot of times we talk about successes. We want to build wealth. We want to make money. We want to be successful. What that success means to you? And I want you to answer based on who you are today. And I want you to kind of give the difference in your definition. What was it like maybe 15, 20 years ago when you were in corporate leadership? Fair?
Fair.
Good.
Let's go.
Go. Now we can sit down.
Absolutely.
Quick story just before I answer it. So when I came into the room and we got introduction, somebody asked me, so, what are you doing, right? That's a typical networking element. And my answer was, I still do not know who I want to be when I grow up. But what I mean with that is that life and your destiny in life is a journey. And depending on where you are, it's part of the journey. So in the moment of time, it's a truth to all of the answer, because what it might be in a year from now or 2 years from now might be completely different. Mm-hmm. So for me, if you ask me today what success means, it is a legacy build. I have a drive in my journey to be part of disruptive energy driving community changes. So everything I do and everything I evaluate in my journey, in my destiny, if these are investments, if these are people I'm aligning with, they're on a journey to drive positive change in the world. So in elements, and I try to think big. So that's my definition of success today. It is elevating and helping on that legacy build for me personally. And that is aligned with community impact, which means that whatever we're doing to create wealth and mindset and growth has to have an element that it also has an impact of helping others.
So how that is different from those years ago?
Well, if I'm thinking back and, just in my journey and, similar to Renata, we have been, publishing. So I come back to writing your own story and your element of where you're coming from, because we have to recognize that where we're coming from has an impact on what we might do and how we perceive things. So I am an immigrant, legal immigrant. Have to.
You're not an immigrant, you just came from somewhere else.
In this country. However, my family also has been immigrants in their own country. What I mean with that is they lost everything in war. So mom, pretty much end of Second World War, they lived in that part called Czechoslovakia. And they had a lot of property and, a lot of space and a lot of animals and mines. And Germany lost the war. And the Russians came in. So they had to drop everything and running for their lives. Being immigrants in their own country, then 5 women, all of the men died in war. Starting over in a little 1-bedroom with, the 5 women and starting hard labor working on the farm. So that is element of the story, and the story of your family defines how, you are raised, on what values you are raised. I was raised in a small 1-bedroom apartment. We had a TV when I was 6 years old. And I felt not poor, I felt actually rich, because I had everything I needed. I had the love, I had the support, but down the road, right, you recognize what others are having and what they do. So there was an inspiration in me to just make something more. And the main driver in my relationship in our family was my mom. So my mom started to leave when she was 16. And she worked in a bakery, and she raised the children, and she was cooking, and then she was helping in the bakery. And when she stopped working, they had to replace her with 3 others. And so I believe, the drive and getting a lot of things done is definitely embedded, in this story. On the other hand, I'm coming out of a family of storytellers. Ghost stories in the evening. I could not even put my toes out of the bed because all of these exciting stories happened, right? And then I wouldn't want to leave the bed, and I would not even go to the restroom, right? Because I was so scared that there might be somebody under the bed. Anyhow, so storytelling was another element.
So you learned a lot.
I did, and I'm still learning.
Oh, look, I'm calling myself forever student.
Yeah.
But what I'm hearing is there was a lot of learning from mom, from the family, how things were done. So now fast forward a couple decades. How did you end up in corporate?
Well, that was the career path. If you're raised on the values of work hard and give your best and strive for something, that was like the next best thing. It is applying for opportunities. But there always has been an entrepreneurial spirit. Mm-hmm. So fast forward, I started in insurance, kind of like building up call center selling. So that was one element. After that, interestingly, I was running a model agency. Completely different element. But I was driven by creativity. And what I learned in the call center in creating structure, I could apply there as well. And trust me, it's a crazy business. And very shortly after actually 12 months, I recognized definitely not for me, too much drama. Straightforward. Then...
If you didn't know, Europeans don't really like much of a drama.
Some drama.
Wow.
Some drama. Just...
Stay away. Go on.
Yeah. So anyhow, after that, I said, okay, marketing, trying to figure out that next transferable skill set. And I said, okay, I want to do next. And the next was applying for a marketing position. That was the number one computer publishing, magazine publishing, and book publishing company. And so I was running magazines. What you learn when you're running magazines is you have 3 to 6 months. 3 to 6 months will determine if the magazine stays on the shelf or goes. With that, you have a whole team, and either the team can continue to run or it's gone. So it's a lot of number-driven business, but I learned, how to really utilize the structure of numbers and the creativity of positioning in that skill set or in that position.
Okay, what's next?
Well, next,
I want you to really focus on that transition from the corporate leadership. So you climbed the ladder. Cool. So
yeah.
We've done a lot
so
of
next, pretty much, I met my Mr. Right. I started working for Dell Computer. And I think here's another big element of learning. Always ask. When I stopped working for the publishing company, my boss came in and, said, I have another position and, want to do that. And I said, it's time. And I was looking and said, okay, why don't you want to hold me? Because I said, it's your time. You have to fly. There has to be more for you. So you have to go on and move on. Because in our structure, in our company, you can push the ladder for asking for more payments or next positions only to a certain level. So if you really want to run further, you have to go somewhere new, where you can negotiate from the get-go at a whole different level. So I think that is something important to learn as well. And never be absolutely comfortable in your seat. I encourage everybody, when you're starting to be absolutely comfortable in your seat, it's time to move on. Because then it also means that you're not more challenged enough. So it means to really find another opportunity. So I had interviews there during that time. Funny story there as well, Michael Dell was there. So it was, good, lucky for me. He was not flying in for me, so not that position at that time, but he was there. But I asked. So I asked, hey, can I have 5 minutes with the boss? And he said yes. So another big learning overall in whatever you do, never be afraid to ask. What's the worst thing what can happen?
They can say no.
Yes, but a lot of times you get a yes too. And I apply that rule in a lot of other things, what I'm doing as well. Nicely, even in a hotel or when I go in somewhere, I say, okay, am I getting the nicest room? Yeah. Do you have, something nice for me? Nothing changing there. It's a good strategy. And I get more yeses than, no's. And if you're not asking, you're not winning. So nothing happens there as well. So from there, fast forward, I worked there for most probably 12 months. My boss was hired by IBM. He took 5 of his key people with him, and we started call center and direct marketing for PCs. That is a long time ago for IBM. From there, I started to put myself out to also work on European projects. I traveled a lot to Paris. And so I was building up team, and I had the number 1 sales performing team in my department. And therefore, I had 2 choices. There was a high-level award. There was, some packages and stock. And there was the third opportunity to have 5 minutes with Lou Gerstner, at that time, the executive for IBM, in a private plane ride to Paris. And that is what I chose. So I had the opportunity to really be with him and ask him questions. But again, it depends all your choices and what you're making and what you're going for is setting you up for what comes next. Mm-hmm. Yes. What comes next?
So what comes next?
So what comes next is that, that is actually that work with IBM, and I, was setting up call centers, and then it was ready for the next move. So for that, normally you go on assignment. And I thought, it will be Paris. But it was Atlanta. And that is really, I had to make a decision again, make decisions quickly. I had 2 weeks to decide if I leave my country, everything I knew behind me, jump on an airplane to accept this position here. And, was one deep breath in, deep breath out, and I said yes. And then later on I said, what have you done, right? No. But so was yes. And I still remember other quick funny story. To this day, I arrived at the airport. I asked for a taxi. You know how the taxis are in Germany? What type of taxis we have in Germany?
I think you might want to describe that for a second.
Mercedes. Yeah. So it's a really nice car if you're calling for a taxi.
What did you guess?
So I got this car, which I thought, would maybe fall apart, close to be falling apart. And I was looking at the person I was asking and said, okay, I'm not sure where I'm ending up here, but okay, so I'm jumping into this taxi. So anyhow, funny little moment, right? But it's, you assume, so never assume, right? So you don't know what you don't know, because only because we have this taxis doesn't mean the taxis here will be the same. So funny part, but that's what brought me here. My English, and it's still, I said, again, I didn't bring my translator today, so sometimes I'm making up words. So if you don't understand what I'm saying, I have a tendency to make up words. So if I don't know it, right? Funny story, and I know, if I can say that anyhow. So yeah. I had, a fantastic friend and gentleman and we were working closely together. And I learn words based on what I'm hearing. And so we want to go out for lunch, and somebody, said, okay, ask him to come with us as well. And so I was in my turn, what should I say? And so I asked him, would you like to enjoy me? But what I want to say was, would you like to join me, to come to it? So what I'm saying is, you cannot take yourself too serious either. When I arrived, I had people flying
I mean, don't leave me hanging, please.
Did he want to
He was
join you?
laughing. No, he was laughing very hard, and he was not on my side, if you mean what I mean. So he was not interested in women at all. So that came, so just to say that as well. And to this day, I am turning red, right? So it's not happening. So to this day, right? So if I say something like that, I'm turning red. But I own it. What I mean was that I own it. It's just who I am. And I take it as it is. And you have to take me as I am. So it's okay.
I think
So
a
what
lot
comes
of
next?
us has like done similar things. I did. I'm not going to give you an example, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
But again, so I had to hold a presentation in front of 50 people flying in from all over countries, from all over the world. I knew roughly approximately 25% of the subject I needed to educate everybody on. And my English was most probably at 30%. When you hear me now, I think my English is pretty okay. But at that point in time, there was a lot of vocabulary missing. But I did it anyhow. So I told everybody, this is what I do. I had my little board there explaining everything and, everything we needed to do. And I asked my support group in when I needed additional explanation. So I made it through it. It was not perfect, but we completed the project again in a short amount of time than anticipated, roughly 80% earlier than everybody was assuming that it would be finished. And I have proven myself, even so my original presentation was not there, because I believed strongly that I can do it. So turning back to mindset. So after that, again, story came to...
the point that I'm really waiting for.
Okay, what point, please?
Remember when I was doing the workshops in the boardroom? Mm-hmm. By the way, if you didn't know, this event was born from the workshop that I used to make, where we actually sit down, like 15 or so of us, and we dove deep into the mining psychology and stuff. And she came to a couple events, and then I found things that I never knew. What about that $1 million? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Well, coming back, but that was back in Germany. So when I started,
because I really want you to share that, because that is what, when people see the raw thing, when people see what's really going on, because up until now, it's fun life. Wouldn't you agree?
Well,
it always?
It was hard work and fun. Hard work and fun. But yes, there are definitely failures and stepping stones, everything you're doing. So when I was 18, I had a boyfriend, and so we together started this model agency. He actually had been a model for many, many years, and so started to continue doing that. It was an abusive relationship. I don't have to go into any details, but it was a very abusive relationship. And to pretty much, hold me in barrier, there were contracts I signed. So it was 18 years at that point in time. And we signed different contracts, and I co-signed them. And with the ending of the relationship, I had a $1 million lawsuit. I was 18 years old.
How about that?
So that
changes the picture, right? A little bit?
Yeah. But I was not letting this changing what I had to do. So I left that house with a bag and pretty much like a plan to just disappear. And the disappearance was not a lone disappearance. There were people following me. There were private detectives. It was a pure mess. And that was 18. That is quite an interesting story if you really think about it. However, I was not allowing this to derail to what I believed I needed to do next. So I took my own counseling, and here's the part is I knew the finances, I knew all of the accounting elements, because that was also what I did for the company. And I needed to take a deep breath, and really determine what my next step was. So I negotiated. So I negotiated the contract. It was a negotiation. Didn't go to lawsuit or anything like that, but I negotiated it completely down with saying, here, this is what I want us to sign, because, if we do this, then I will do that. And we all both don't want to do that. What I want is to get out. I don't want to have anything there. I could have negotiated differently, but I want to get out. So we were negotiating it down to a level which was acceptable to me. And, but I was proud of myself. I actually did not. And again, comes to another element. I did not go back to my parents. I did not go back whining there. I figured out for myself what I am doing. I told the story later, and there's pluses and minuses why I did or not did do that, right? But it was also that element that my dad, of course, clearly told me not to do that, right? And so I had to prove myself, even if I did the wrong, I can get myself out of it. But that is the fighter in me. So everything, I feel, and I didn't feel sorry about myself either, because I got myself into that mess too. And with that, I felt I have to get myself out as well.
So do you understand now why I said in the beginning what I said? She could have gone into fear, and she could have freaked out, and she could have done something. Some people actually kill themselves for that thing. Your perspective is so, so important, how you see things. So I hope from now on you at least have like 1% of more awareness where, okay, crap happens. Everyone has life happening. So what? It doesn't matter. It will happen. But the way we see things, the way we look at things, and okay, so this happened. What do I do next? Not coming from, oh my God, you're running to dad and just like freaking out. I'm so proud of you, 18-year-old of you.
But again, with that comes also always the determination that, I have to be an overachiever. So definitely that is a good and not so good thing. Sometimes you need to have the breather too. So I definitely am always achieving and going for the more. And it is not enough, right? So there's always something more. So there's definitely an element in myself driving to that next level, always on the top of something else.
Do we need to have a conversation about that?
Yeah. But that is also the drive, right? I wouldn't have been able to get to where I am without that determination and not letting a setback stopping me for still going and moving forward. But yes, there's always something to work on for sure.
So half of this room is high achievers, high performers. I just can tell by looking at everyone. Okay? But the hardest part is like, yes, you have the drive, and I'm not denying how far you've gone and what you accomplished. Because I'm like also like going through the walls. That's what I've done for 4 decades plus. But my question to all of you is, at what cost? What is the cost of that drive? Have you ever sat down and actually looked at that? Because every drive, whenever we're forcing, have anyone read book Force versus Power or something like that? I read it like 20 years ago or 10 or whatever it's published. But that's a perfect book to look at. Am I forcing things, or am I coming from the empowered state? And that's what you're talking about more. But that drive that's coming, it's more like, okay, I have to do because who I am at this moment is not good enough, is not okay. It's not safe to be just me sometimes. So there could be many different stories coming up. So what I want you to talk about now for a second, where are you today? Who are you today? What are you doing today?
Well, I'm in a very fantastic relationship with a husband and one son who's graduating this Friday. So very excited about that. And having found a partner who really accepts me and my independence. You know, somebody who's not wanting to change me and just, you know, loving me for who I am and empowering me to do and supporting me to drive and do and support my legacy build. And I think for that, I am so grateful. He's my rock. Without him, I wouldn't be able to strive to the levels. And, you know, that, you know, we are together for 23 years. So that's another accomplishment I'm very excited about. And there's always up and downs, but I feel love and that commitment, if you find that person, is always work, right? And commitment is the key, and accepting the person for who they are without wanting to change them, which is, I think that's an important lesson.
It can be hard, especially if we haven't learned all of the lessons that we're supposed to.
Yeah.
Because oftentimes we may think, oh, there's a little bit like rough spot. Maybe I can change that in a couple of years. Anyone? I know I've done that, my share, years ago.
But, you know, stopping with the corporate part and going now really into the entrepreneurship. So I have done that. I have to say that besides all of my corporate work, I always had entrepreneurial businesses. So beside, you know, even back in Germany, I was speaking or I was giving lectures when the wall came down. My first husband and I, we went and taught in Eastern Germany entrepreneurship. So that was a side business, and I always, you know, enjoyed that. So that was always a part of me. So there was always an entrepreneurial element, or did some marketing for other or some, you know, marketing concepts, and I enjoyed it. So I was always on that journey to learn something in addition. I also did my MBA, you know, on evening schools, besides all of the corporate work I did. When I came here, and finally, you know, everything I did was entrepreneurial. So I was hired to set up operations and organization. So, hey, Barbara, here's the money, right? Hire the team, set up the processes, get things going. And I truly enjoyed it. Transferable skill set. So always think about what have you learned in the past and what can you take with you to that next. So after all of that, and finally finding my Mr. Right, which was a journey, and it was an interview. I interviewed most probably 120 candidates if they are a match. You know, and again, you can laugh about it, but it worked for me, right? I was determined that I wouldn't let like this energy or that hype of the moment go away. So there was another rule, no kisses and nothing more for 3 months, right? Because I wanted to really, truly understand the other person. So I found that this was an important element, and it worked for me. But going back to now having my son, and, you know, for a long time I didn't know if I even want to have a child. So very happy and excited about that, and taking a sabbatical year. Going back, I accepted a position in the mothership. And the mothership of corporate world and me were not a good combination because there was too much restriction. And I am not a political person in the sense. I go for what I believe is the right thing to do. So I told them, hey, if we're doing this, I don't think this department will last any longer because we're not providing value. You know, that was most probably not the best strategic thing I could have done, but I was ready, and I said, okay, and I'm ready to take a package. So I took the package, and then I had to figure out what I want to do next. So I started investing in real estate, single-family houses. Out of that, you know, the company was born. We flipped some houses. Out of that, I started interior design and home staging business, which is still existing to today. I have an operations director who's running that business. I was teaching, I was coaching in that industry for years. That industry pretty much started. I know all of the big companies throughout the US. We're meeting, we were coaching, we're building the processes and the strategies and how to run these businesses, you know, most efficient. So I did that for longer than I ever have worked in an environment for over 15 years, but at a certain point, I definitely reached the edge. My edge is normally 7 years, and then I feel strongly something has to change and I need a new challenge overall. So that's what I did, and I started to get more educated in the commercial part and in real estate. So I started investing in real estate in the commercial part. I'm still involved in a lot of different syndications from there, and I was also expanding myself into the sphere of technology again, because that's where I originally was coming from, having more conversation with technology startups. I'm now sitting on board of 2 technology startups with shares in company, and I am also, continuing that. I think I have 10 people I am mentoring in conversations in that field. So when you're asking me now what I want to be when I grow up, or what my next level is, to really see and be on board of advisors of different companies and help them, to replace myself as quickly as possible, to find the replacement and see them grow and prosper. That's it.
So all that is beautiful. You know me. So you shared that one bigger setback, how you got out of it. And once because this is more around both the finances, successes, the mindset. I want you to go into the mindset a little bit more and tell me, okay, you don't need to share the setbacks in general or more of them, but what role your mindset actually played during those things outside, like, okay, I need to go do this and that, because there is much more to that.
It's a can-do attitude, and that means you're not setting the limitation in the box. So when I have a goal in front of me and I have a plan, let's say, okay, you hear often, oh, I'm busy, I know I need an assistant, or I need to do this, or I need to do that. The way I'm thinking is, okay, I have a certain amount of budget, right? So to do this, it means 1 more sales, or it needs 2 more sales. So I am not waiting until I am at the edge in general of where I have to act. I start ahead of the time. And I have made a lot of decisions. You might question it, but that's my strategy and it has worked so far. Because the determination that I know I'm on an upswing means that I have to have certain people in place. Otherwise, I cannot do what I can do anymore. So I have to possibly take a pay cut for a month or 2 until it's catching up. But it always has worked out because I could breathe. A lot of people ask me, because my fingers are in a lot of different elements, so how do you do that? How do you manage to be in company A, B, and C, do the capital raising, still run your other company? And it's only working because I have a team in place and I have a structure in place under which I operate. And that is not wait, it is do ahead of time. And that's how I also can be involved in, beautiful nonprofit ventures and still be there and do all of the other elements who give me tons of pleasure because I feel it is driving community and change, and still be there and breathe and not, be flabbergasted and exhausted and running to the edge. Sometimes I'm pushing it a little bit too far, and then my husband tells me, okay, Barbara, I think you need a break. And if he tells it to me, because he's not telling that very often, then it gives me a clear indication to do that quick stop. With that, like COVID, like everybody had that. So if you have a payroll of 50,000, 60,000, whatever it is, to perform, and suddenly everything stops, that's scary. And outside of COVID, I had at least 3 of these elements. And you have to have faith. You have to believe that it is happening and that you can get out. I have 2 options. I can get completely flabbergasted and go into fear mode, or I go into action mode because I believe we are getting out of that and we're coming out stronger. And I go always for the glass is half full. And I want it to be full. So I have to move forward. And so far in life, It always happened. It happens. But I believe the belief and the energy you're putting out, and that's what the other people are seeing, that is the driver too. Because if your team sees that you're driving, then they believe in it too. But if you're not, and they see the fear in you, they cannot believe in moving forward. So, and I also tell them, so if you don't believe in it, maybe then that you might have to do a change as well. If you don't believe you're worth it, price increases, I increase the prices before the tariffs go in. So, and therefore you have a different position. But your team has to believe it. I said, if you don't believe it, you cannot sell it. If you're not out there and you don't believe it, you're worth it, you cannot do it. You want to have the pay raise? You want to have the pay raise? Yes. So we have to believe it first to move forward so we can do it.
Yeah, send them to me. I'm going to brainwash them and just do something. I want you to understand one thing also. Whatever she's sharing, do you realize that she started actually created some things out of thin air? That's how we all set goals. That's how we all accomplish things. We say we want something. We want to buy a house or sell a house. We want a new client. We want to do something. We say them. They're words. They're basically warm air coming out of our mouths. And then suddenly they become tangible things. That's the belief that she's talking about. You may not always believe fully, oh, I believe I can do that. Break it down. What can you do today? Maybe you'll need to start without, not into $500,000. Maybe you'll need to start with $10,000. As long as a little bit of a stretch, that's what matters. But I want you to really consider that from thin air, you actually create tangible stuff. Whether it's investments, whether it's commercial real estate, whether it's the company, design company. That's what she did. That's what every single one of you did.
Well, I think what I would like to add is step out of comfort zones and go into new rooms. Whenever I'm on this edge, I go out of my comfort zone completely. Because, in my industry for years, I had been everybody knew my name, everybody, but there is no stretching anymore. And like a rubber band, we have to learn how to stretch. And we have to get into that zone of uncomfortable. Nobody knows you. But I can guarantee you that 12 months from now, my rooms will know my name. Not everybody, but you have to ensure that you are, that people know you too. And the way you do it is to be of service. And clearly also understand what other people need and how you can make this connection. And it comes genuine. And I believe people ask me, so what is your recipe of success? I think it's my heart. Because whatever I do and whatever I say, it's still, I believe in it, right? It's come genuine and it's not made up. I believe in it. If I don't believe in it, I will not do it. I will not go that route anymore. I let go of everything where it doesn't make sense to me or I cannot align with it. So vibration, right? Align with people who raise your vibration. I'm a strong believer in that as well. And listen to yourself, right? Is there a connection, right? If you have conversation, I am ending a business relationship right now and transfer the business, my share of the business into the other company, into for the other person. And it's successful. It has nothing to do, but we are not vibrating on the same levels anymore. And when you recognize it, it is important to take action and not letting that run out. And it's hard, and there's emotions in it, but it is a very important step to do as well. So if that is not there anymore, or you have outgrown certain things, it's important to set this end date there too, and figure out a fair way to move on to the next.
This is so, so true. Because every time you're up leveling, especially internally, I can guarantee that your circle is going to shrink. It's going to change. You will have to let go of friendships. You will have to let go of acquaintances or business collaborations that you work maybe for 10 or 20 years. Because, yeah, especially that's relevant in relationships, personal relationships. Because if you're growing and the other person is not catching up, whether it's employee or personal relationships, they just going to fall off. So in business, you cannot take this personally. You actually need to lean into gratitude, because if that person did not leave, you would be stagnating and just flat, not growing. So as hard as it can be emotionally, just accept it. If they catch up to your level, things change, circumstance change. Sometimes you bring people back in, and that's fine, but then it's your decision, your choice. Do you want to continue or not? So I know it's hard, because I personally had to let go of people, and it wasn't easy, because I had to let go of 15-year-old relationships. And yeah, I get it.
Yeah. So challenge, think outside of the box, and, challenge yourself to be a lifetime learner as well. Every year I try to do something I never have done before. So one year I took singing lessons. I shared that prior. And I am not a singer. Trust me, you do not want to hear me sing. But, 6 months with a teacher was at that point in time my mom's birthday. And I sang That's What Friends Are For, Diane Warwick. And I was nervous as hell. And I was a nervous wreck. And I did not even eat, but I did it anyhow. And I think that's an important part. Last year I turned 60. I'm very proud, for that. And so I did 60 new things, 60 things I never have done before. So just a challenge. But, for me, it is once a year something where I'm always a lifetime learner, and I'm humble in my beginnings, and I really always learn to listen. So thank you. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Barbara. Thank you for sharing and being open and raw and going into not so pleasant stuff and just sharing with us, because that's important. Unless you know the real stuff, what's really going on, because we can always share all the successes and stuff, but we don't know what's going on really, what I call behind the closed doors. And sometimes it's not the fun stuff, right? Anyone has any questions before we close out? I'll let you. Oh my goodness, David, you are here. You are back.
Can people say after me, please? It says, badass you. Repeat after me. Badass you. Let's say it again. Badass you. There you go. One more time. Real loud. Badass you. There you go.
Oh, you're so sweet. This guy is actually, I've known you for a few years. And since day one, he's been still the number one supporter of anything I do. Anything. So, and I tease him because he had a company here. And I'm like, you're leaving? You cannot be leaving. Thank you for coming back. Anyone has any questions?
I do have a question. We never got to hear what you talked about with that executive from IBM on that plane.
Well, really, it was mainly questions. And again, be always prepared to have some great questions. At that time, I was much younger, but I really wanted to understand what made him, what was the driver for his success and why he did what he did. And I was in a position to have to let go several people. And I wanted to understand how he compartmentalizes that personal relationship from the business decision. And maybe a little story at the end to share too. I am a very heart-centered person, and with that comes that emotions really can get to me. That means that when something is really sad, I cry. And letting something go sometimes also mean to cry for me. It was very hard for many years because I defined myself that this is not okay. I put in my head, because I want to be strong, I am not allowed to cry. And I changed that whole thinking around it. And the way I describe it also, I said, I will cry today to let you go. because on the personal level, there I enjoy and I appreciate you. But from a business decision, this is what I have to do, because if I do not do that, it is impacting everybody else. And setting this and separating this emotional part from the business part helps. And so for me, it's only one example, but that's how I try to function. I don't have to be a different person and have to be that hard person and there's no emotions coming out. That's not me. But it doesn't mean I cannot drive and do the right decisions at that point in time to drive success in the best interest of everybody working there, because I want to have a power team. Trust me, I want to have it, and I will have it. No, you know what I'm saying. So it doesn't mean, you have to make hard decisions, but doesn't mean that you have to be perceived or have to be a person. I can cry and still be a strong businesswoman. So.
Anyone else? Yes.
So, incredible story, Barbara. What would you say, your biggest learning in life? Like, from everything that you have done, what is your number one?
Listen and also follow your gut and your heart, right? In your decisions and what you're doing. Often we're hanging in too long because we are afraid. But again, coming back to this compartmentalizing and driving decisions, I think that is a big part. But don't do things they are not in alignment of who you are. It will always backfire, right? With everything. And I think that's the same, the intuition you're getting sometimes. Sometimes it's okay to just step away.
Yes.
So the only thing is, in order to do that, you need to know who you are in the first place.
Yeah. The key
because
is,
without that, it's just impossible. Yes, Angelina.
So how do you cultivate faith, especially in the moment when there is like a setback or a challenge? Like practical thoughts, steps. I don't know. Do you like go and sit down for a day and think, or like cry, or talk to God, or what do you do to cultivate the faith so that way the fear doesn't come in?
Well, I think accepting fear because it's real, right? There's an element of fear, but then breaking it down. For me, it's like a process, right? You understand, okay, where is it coming from and what is the solution? So whatever I do, similar as I shared, I had my list with my husband, with all the pros and cons. I am really sitting down and writing out also where, what's the worst case scenario? So what is happening if I sit still, right? Nothing happens, right? Then, it's consistent. So what are the steps I'm taking next to get out of this? And if I do A, that's, what is the worst case scenario from A, B, C? And then I make a decision. At the end, I know the answer, but writing it out helps me to just have it in front of you. There's this saying, and I think it's one of the barbarisms. If it's not written, it's not real, and I know it's not coming from me. But it's the same element with everybody. In sales, you learn too. People want to have, they look. You tell somebody the price, you're still looking at the price tag to validate that what you heard is what you see. So, if it's not written, it's not real. So for me, writing it down helps me, to get that plan in place. And I accept the fear too. I know, so I recognize it, right? It's not, you cannot, certain things you cannot suppress. But I create the plan of action to deal with it. Does that help?
And if I may add, it really depends what type of fear we're talking about. Where the fear is coming from. Is that because you've never done this before and it's a known? Or the fear is coming back from your history and the patterns and constraints that you have around that thing? Because every time you're going into something different, your mind's automatically going to go back and forth and look for that evidence to support or reject what your constraint is. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, look, I always love giving different angles.
Yeah, no, that's good. And I think that part that's doing something new is that challenging yourself, right? So there's always something where you're uncomfortable. And so that is a learning process. I think everything is, if you do it more often, it's easier to deal with it. If you run a company and the money is not in the bank, right? And payroll, there's a certain part, it's also experience. It's not certain things I can sleep if that makes sense. So it's not that it wakes me up because I know it will happen. Things will happen because there's a plan in place, there's a structure in place to make things happen.
Okay, one last one.
No, I was just going to add that you and I, when we sat down, we talked several times, but one of the times we talked, you said something really interesting that I think goes right along with all of this, and that is when we think about where we're going and what we're trying to do, we don't need to. Most people start off with, I know I don't want X, Y, and Z. Remember you pointed that out? You said, no, not what you don't want. Focus on what you do want. Because that is how we're manifesting. It starts with the thought.
It's so easy. And I love what you share, Lisa. Did everyone hear? I hear this 90% of the time. Every time I ask people, what do you want?
Yep.
And it's unconscious. And they say, oh, no, I didn't mean that. I know you didn't mean that with that logic side of you, but the system, that foundation is telling you what you don't want and you're putting it in front. So you're absolutely right, because when you start talking about what you don't want, you're always going to be in that conflict internally because you're seeking what you want that you don't have, and you're trying to reject something you have but you don't want. Are you following me? So there is that bumping heads like 24/7 going on inside of you, and most people realize, and it seems like really innocent correction. Oh, I didn't mean that. I love that you brought it up. But it's super, super important because to me, it automatically shows the constraint. You may not know what exactly it's about, and we can talk, but it's important to notice that you're doing that. And your friends, closest friends, or whoever you sit down with and just chat, just start being aware what you're speaking, because your language is actually projecting where you're going, whether you realize or not. So thank you for that. Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you.
And I want to give you a little bit time also to mingle. Did you guys meet some good people here?
Yes.
Okay, so we have some more time. I love to do that at the end, so about 20, 30 minutes. So go mingle and meet some people. And one ask I have, if you're not in my phone, you have to be there. Okay? And if we did not have coffee, we did not have coffee.
Yeah, please set it up. And if you want to learn about the books,
I would love to have coffee with you, lunch, whatever, get to know you. And those who sat down with me, they know that I'm asking a lot of questions, so be ready for that. I just want to get to know you, okay? But do the same for other people. Meet people, build relationships, get to know them, see how you can be of support to each other. Some people made fun of me, oh, you're a connector. Look, if I know someone needs to know something, why not, right? So be the same way.
Thank you. Thank you.